This is the shore of Monterey Bay in California, where Morris Young spent so many happy and productive days. But I'm not going to talk about him as a marine biologist. I'm going to talk about him as my father and a family man.
Morris was born the son of a headmaster in Pudsey, Yorkshire, in the last days of 1899, and kept the straightforward manner of the region where he spent his childhood. His fascination with history was radically altered by the First World War, which he was just too young to take part in, but which changed his attitude towards history as a profession. In a country emerging from a terrible conflict, he decided to devote his life to a more practical subject, and zoology was his choice. Of course, his reputation was made, and his course in life set, by the pioneering 1928 expedition to the Great Barrier Reef. But he travelled widely around the world, often to the United States, and always to the States in years that ended in a 9. The first of these was 1929, and he could recall the appearance of San Francisco Bay before the building of the Golden Gate Bridge. For his longest visit, a year, starting in 1959, my mother Phil and I travelled with him while he worked in marine stations on both coasts. I can date my affection for Monterey Bay from that time, which may account for the fact that since 1998 it has been my home. We returned as a family in 1969, spending most of that 2-month trip at the Friday Harbour Laboratory Community on Puget Sound. During our time together in Scotland, Morris was what these days would be known as a home handyman. Though he had no training in woodwork, he would speak with modest pride of having built the intricate system of interlocking 10-foot-high bookshelves, reaching to the ceiling of his study in Helensburgh and, from 1965, Edinburgh. I recall being banned from that room during week-long proofreading and correction sessions. On the rare occasions that I was allowed in, the entire galley print of the latest book or paper would be spread out across the floor, with my father, in his socks, walking delicately between them to cut out a section here and, literally, paste it somewhere else. As a special treat, I would be allowed to make an edit under his supervision. His favourite paste for this purpose was Gloy, and to this day I can recall its soupy smell and the feel of the unfinished wood-handled brush that was part of the bottle top. Writing, though always an effort for him, was not just a means to supplement the modest family income, but a way to share his enthusiasm and knowledge of the natural world with the public. To the end of his days, however, his spelling remained unreliable, calling for much careful proofreading of his laboriously typed manuscript by my mother, and later myself. Summer and autumn were always seasons for garden-based activities. The harvesting of his favourite raspberries — we had a large stand of them in the back garden at Edinburgh — and their conversion into jam by my mother was an annual ritual. Preparing and lighting autumn bonfires of branches and leaves, in those days of few pollution controls, was also a shared delight of father and son. The houses in Helensburgh and Edinburgh were always filled with music. Though he could not play an instrument, Morris passionately loved opera, and indeed music in all its forms. Family holidays until my late teens were generally spent in Europe, most often travelling and sightseeing in his beloved Italy and France. Trips to Italy were combined with visits to his daughter Elspeth and her family in Rome. His physical capacities in later years became increasingly limited by Parkinsonism, but his intellect was undiminished, and he continued to work and to receive visitors from all over the world. My mother and I looked after him until the day he died at the age of 86, sitting up in bed with correspondence and notes spread about the covers. Morris was a scientific pioneer, whose life began in the Victorian era, but whose achievements remain influential today. He worked tirelessly for the advancement of science and education, often without reward. Despite this, he remained a modest and shy person to the end of his life, open to new ideas, and always seeking to persuade others through reason rather than seniority. I miss him, and so does the world of zoology.